Hello everyone, today I'll be trying something new. I'm going to be talking about an SCP that has held my interest for some time now, and today I'm going to diagnose the doctor known as SCP-049. First, I'd like everyone to know the fact that I will only be using the direct source of information on 049, and nothing from things like the Vulcan or even the game he is in, SCP Containment Breach. That said, I'll only be using the page that has directly made him for a source of information about it. If you're unfamiliar with SCP-049, he's an SCP number and was written by part of the SCP community, which is dedicated to creating creatures of anomalous effects. He is a plague doctor that, in simple terms, touches people that he believes has the plague, which causes instant death. He then kills all people around him in a similar manner, begins to operate on his subjects or subjects, turns them into zombies with various unknown and unknown chemicals, and resumes his relatively passive nature. Lovely guy. So why try and bring reason and science to something fictional? Because it isn't fiction, for the most part. The only truly anomalous thing I've found about this guy is that his mask and garb are a physical part of his body. I tried researching on the matter of leather, human skin, and their correlation to each other, but to no avail. It just isn't possible. You win this time, 049. This time. But as for his other traits, they are surprisingly accountable for, even to the point of him being able to kill people with a single touch and turning said victims into zombies. So let's start with the one-hit kill death. Actually, how does he kill people in a single touch? My friends, the answer is batrachotoxin, a poison found in the poison dart frog, which secretes this neurotoxin through its skin, and certain species can even spit it at anything it feels threatened by. To make matters worse, it can be absorbed through the skin. It works by attacking the central nervous system and causing failure between nerves and muscles. There is no cure, and death can occur in the dosage of 7 micrograms per kilogram. In other words, if you weigh 100 kilograms, all it takes to turn you into a lifeless corpse is a mere 0.7 milligram dosage. This is roughly 14 grains of table salt. In other words, not a whole lot. 049 would easily be protected by his thick leather gloves, and yes, he could be affected by the poison if not for this, because the procedure to recontain him involves sedation, which requires blood flow, making himself vulnerable to poisons as well. The next part's a bit complicated, as should be expected for bringing the dead back to life. While it's a very new practice, it's still possible, and was at the time of the idea of 049 being created. The process is a bit complicated, so I'll keep it brief. It involves revitalizing specific organs, and if you want to look into it more, you can look up Experiments in the Revival of Organisms. It's pretty disturbing, so I won't go into great detail in case anyone out there is squeamish. More modern methods are being practiced, though rarely on humans. When tested on animals, most attempts were successful. However, several cases reported the revived organism exhibiting zombie-like behavior. Sound familiar? It would seem he is purposely failing in fully reviving the subjects and forcing them to exhibit these behaviors. And yes, I'm aware these methods require a machine in most cases, and I hate to rely on the shadow of a doubt for this one, but several liquids 049 possesses are unidentified by modern science. Could he have a concoction that forces blood flow throughout the body? It's skeptical at best, but given the information, it's easy to understand that these chemicals have something to do with the revival of the subjects. So I hope I answered the how question, but that leaves us with why. Why would he go around with this complicated scheme to fill the world with zombies? I think the answer is a bit more than you'd thought. It's easy to classify him as a psychotic killer, right? Wrong. Psychopaths, as well as sociopaths, are selfish, anger quickly, and often refuse to work at all, as well as exhibiting other symptoms, but these signify that 049 is indeed no psychopath. He is calm and shows no true signs of being self-indulgent. So what then? It's actually 3 things, my fellow people. I diagnosed 049 with being a sufferer of schizoid personality disorder, blunted affect, and delusional disorder. Let's start with delusional disorder, since that is probably the only one most people here watching can guess about. Yes, it's about as simple as it sounds. 049 is under the impression that he is a plague doctor, when in reality he is not. Don't believe me? Well, let's take a look. Here's a picture of a typical plague doctor. 2 things you see him wear that 049 has never been depicted as having: the hat and the rod. The hat had no real use and was really just symbolic, and the rod was used to keep the diseased away or direct people on where to go. However, these are not key features we see in plague doctors today. Primarily, we see the garb and the mask. That's about it. If he were truly from the time era of the plague doctors, he'd want to keep both as they nearly defined them at the time. Of course, the beak was a bit more noticeable, which is probably how he remembered it being such a key feature. Another detail that helps us evaluate his delusional disorder comes from his choice in surgery. Many plague doctors used bloodletting because it was highly believed to drain the disease from the sick. This practice was still being used up until the mid-1800s. However, 049 chooses to merely dissect the subject and put in various chemicals, indicating he learned medical practice post-1800s, over 200 years after the Black Death hit Europe. So in short, he lacks two features of the plague doctor. He doesn't wear the appropriate attire and uses treatments that were not used to fight the plague. But there's one problem. Sufferers of delusional disorder are often explosively angry when told their ideals are wrong. However, 049 is calm at all times. How could this be? It's a result of his next illness, schizoid personality disorder, also known as SPD. This causes the victim to be somewhat of an island to others, not taking them into account and feeling indifferent about their presence. To be declared with SPD, the victim must have 3 of the 8 possible signs, and I found them. The first, they are aloof and show little emotion. It's quite obvious that 049 shows little emotion already based on his conversation with the doctor, and he is definitely aloof as he shows no feeling toward others and doesn't seem to mind being locked in a cell all day. The second trait is, they are indifferent to praise or criticism. This is shown at the end of the conversation where the doctor specifically states that 049's tactics are faulty, to which 049 replied, "My cure is most effective." He paid no attention at all to the fact that he was just told that the largest part of his life was an error, and merely told him what he thought in the most basic way possible. The third nail is this: they do not desire or enjoy close relationships, even with family members. He's shown no signs of wanting to make any type of relationship with anyone, even the first person he's spoken to since arriving at the Foundation. This brings us to his final illness, blunted affect. This is actually a side effect of a number of other mental illnesses, but I believe this specific case to be the result of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Hold it! I hear you saying, he kills people on a day-to-day basis. How could someone who does it so often without guilt have PTSD? Well, the answer is simple. Yes, PTSD usually grows to induce panic attacks in individuals, but in some cases the victim merely shuts off his emotional system and continues to live his life, expressing very little emotion, though still sometimes does. This can be seen after he comes into contact with a second SCP, where afterwards he is defined as slightly happier. In the lore, no records exist of their conversation, and the second SCP's number is censored. Now the last question. If he wishes to cure those around him, why turn them into mindless zombies? If he believes the plague is inside a person and he cures them by turning them into mindless, zombie-like creatures, then it's fairly obvious these zombies are his version of the cure. Could it be a part of his delusional disorder, where these qualities are what he thinks of as cured? Perhaps he views these creatures as a greater race, or perhaps he wishes to best put back the time of the Black Death and create people to exhibit the symptoms of the illness. It's hard to say for certain, and it's by far one of the most baffling questions. But all in all, 049 is merely a man who has a leather and porcelain for skin with severe psychological issues. I wouldn't know of any therapist who could help him, but he severely needs it. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, this was an experiment. If you want to see more, just say so. I have an idea for my next part if it comes to it. So, see you all in the next video. Rate if you want to rate, comment if you want to comment, and subscribe if you want to see videos similar to this one. See y'all.